Hello everyone, and welcome into today's video. Today we're going to be going into what I think is the sad replacement for sunspots. I think sunspots are now, for all things considered, useless. I think this class just does everything Sunspots was trying to do better. I think Sunspots is a very good class, but I think this class is even better. Alright, let's go ahead and get into it, and we can discuss it. But before we head into it, I just want to let y'all know, I'm trying to grow this channel. I am trying to be as consistent as possible, and it would help if you would like, comment, and subscribe, and share this video and any other videos on this channel with your friends. It would be much appreciated. Alright, thank you everybody. Let's go ahead and hop into this build and a breakdown of this class. Alright everybody, welcome in. I'm going to first go into a breakdown of this tree. I'm on Attunement of Flame, which is the bottom tree for Dawnblade, which Dawnblade is the Solar Warlock class. Alright, let's go ahead and get into the 4 perks on here, and let's start understanding what they do and how they behave in game. Alright, first off, we have the melee, which is Igniting Touch. When you punch an enemy with the powered melee, they will burn. If they die to burn damage, they will explode. If they die to a second melee, they will explode. If they die to a weapon, they will explode. If they die to a teammate, they will explode. As long as you have an enemy who is affected by burn damage on this class, when they die, they will explode. Unless they're a strike or dungeon boss, then I don't think they explode on death. Second, we have the change to the super that I think makes it underrated, because you don't have to be quite as precise with the swords as you would say you'd have to be on top tree. And this is, in my opinion, what brings it more in line with hammers, because hammers, especially sunspots, you don't really want to throw them at the target. You want to throw them at the target's feet, so that way they instantly create that sunspot. The Daybreak projectiles track really well. When you press your attack button on the super, which I think for most classes, for most inputs, is your melee button. It's technically called light attack, I believe, but I have found a melee. These projectiles will seek, and when they hit the ground, they actually travel along the ground for a split second. Which means anything that's right there will also get attacked by it. Things to note: your super causes burn damage. This burn damage does cause the targets to explode, which is part of the reason why this super is so insane. Next, we have what I would argue is the most useless part of the class, but it does work. They made it so that you can descend like Shatter Dive in any direction with Phoenix Dive a while back, and it does make it more useful, especially in hard content, if you float up. To be able to float up, and sometimes you'll get caught in a float animation, just be able to dive down and get that health back is incredibly useful. However, I don't think it's any reason at all part why this class would be S tier. Why it is S tier. I don't think this class is good as Stasis Warlock currently is, but I think it's close. And I think in the future, when we get Solar 3.0, this class should be incredibly close. Next up, we have the part that makes this super truly insane. Like, the super of this class is like 75%, is like 50% the reason why this class is so good. Every time you get a kill with the super, whether it's an explosive kill, whether it's a kill with the like projectile itself, it'll extend the super's duration. It has diminishing returns, but the super can last long enough that in something like Hollowed Lair, you can, in the Hollowed Lair GM, you can literally kill an entire 2 waves of enemies in one super. Even at GM level, you can kill like 2 full waves of enemies and just live. It's kind of insane. I'm running solar grenades. For a while after the change, I did switch to firebolts, but I found firebolts weren't dealing enough damage, even for their 24-second cooldown, which made me switch to solars because I felt solars were still the best PvE grenade. In PvP, I do think firebolts are not worth it over solars, but I definitely think in PvE, because all grenades got a 15% damage buff, I think solars are now ridiculously strong in PvE. Obviously running Healing Rift, and I am running Burst Glide. Alright, that's all for the class breakdown. Now let's head into the armor. Alright, now we're on to the armor. We're going to go for the exotic first. Our exotic today and helmet is going to be Dawn Chorus. Dawn Chorus is Warlock's, Solar Warlocks, Geomag Stabilizers, Celestial Nighthawk, kind of that. You should be running this exotic with this class kind of situation. Because of what it does for this class. First off, it makes it so that the super projectiles cause that burn damage that the rest of the neutral game is causing, which then again causes them to explode when those enemies die. Second, it makes all of the burn effects in the game that you cause, so your grenade, your melee, even the ones from your super, they cause them to last longer. And it also makes your super deal more damage, stackingly with how many times the projectiles hit and once that burn damage clicks. You'll see me later in the video melee Navoda before I start my super damage, because if you melee, it procs the burn immediately, and you don't have to wait for the burn damage to start applying from the super, and so you get more total super damage that way. This is a really strong way to use the super as a damage super. It rivals Celestial Nighthawk, as you'll see. It does a obscene amount of damage as a roaming super that can also kill literally hundreds of ads. Next up, we will go over the rest of the armor. That is it for the helmet. Oh, before we leave for the helmet, I gotta make sure I tell you what mods I'm running. I'm running 2 power preservations and an elemental armament. The elemental armament is completely choice. You can run a Font of Wisdom, you can run a Font of Might there. That's choice. Also, if you don't have the space, because you're not at 100 recov, 100 discipline, like, I would highly recommend on a Warlock, then maybe you need to throw on a recov mod here, maybe you can throw on a discipline mod here. So take off the elemental armament. The elemental armament is choice, it's not force. It's just the thing I find helpful because it helps create those key solar elemental wells in getting that grenade back as much as possible. More often, because you can use a primary, not just relying on those explosive kills, though the explosive kills are very common. Alright, we're going to head now into the rest of the armor. I'm going to try this time to not spend as much time on the armor and shorten down the length of this video. Alright, let's go ahead and get into it. Alright, our next 2 pieces here we're going to cover together because they both have the same mods on them, except for the boots, we just have 1 extra mod on them. Both of these have a Well of Ordnance on them. Well of Ordnance is a solar elemental well mod that gives you grenade energy when you pick up a solar elemental well. And it is a stacking mod, so you could run up to 4 if you had the space on the class for it. Based off the way I have this class built, you don't have the space for it because you're burning 2 slots for Explosive Wellmaker and Bountiful Wells, which we will get into in just a second. But here on the gloves and boots, I am running Well of Ordnance. The reason I have the Well of Ordnance and on the boots and arms is boots and arms are, in my opinion, 2 of the most important pieces in the game. Your arms dictate your champion mods, and seeing as I believe this build is GM master content ready, I think having those space for that champion mods is incredibly important. And also, if you run small mods on your boots, you have enough space to run a scav. And scavs are really expensive, but they do work really well, and they are really strong if you can run them. Most people can't afford them on their builds anymore because of how expensive Bungie made them after making sure they wouldn't stack. So running something like a 1-cost Well of Ordnance mod and then a Discipline mod to help with my Discipline makes it so I have a lot of space still left in my boots. I have 5 points left in my boots. I run a Recuperation by default, so I'm left with 4 points still. I can run a Shotgun Scav, I can run a Linear Fusion Scav, I can run I think I can run a GL Scav if I take off my Recuperation or drop my Discipline and move it around a little bit. I think there's a lot of things you can move around to get a good scav on this armor piece, and so that's really good for build crafting and having things open to different weapon archetypes as seasons progress and as we get into different metas. Alright, that'll be all for these 2 pieces. Now we're going to head into the chest piece, and then we will cover the class item last. Alright, we're on to the chest piece now, and I think this is the piece that brings the whole thing together, really brings in the idea of the build and brings it together into one homogeneous, great, maybe even S tier. I say top A, maybe even bottom S tier build for endgame and regular game content. And that's because of Explosive Wellmaker. This should be relatively self-explanatory, but the whole thing with this class is causing those solar explosions to get as much ad clear as possible, because those explosions are so strong and kill so many things. And so having that Explosive Wellmaker just guarantees you're creating those solar wells as much as possible, and those solar wells are giving you that grenade energy. And so I think that grenade energy is really important for getting that grenade up, and then having that grenade cause that burn damage, which causes those explosions, which then those explosions in turn, once those enemies are killed, cause more explosions, creating more killed ads. I think this is the piece that brings it all together. I think this is the piece that's most important to make sure you put that Explosive Wellmaker on, because chest pieces aren't super important for how many mods you spend, as long as you have 2 left over for your resists. I think you are generally okay come end game content. Alright, that's all for the chest piece. Onto the bond. As you maybe saw in the last build, and I'm going to keep with tradition here, the bond's a little up to choice, except for the combat style mod, or in this case, the Elemental Well mod of choice. I think Bountiful Wells is a really, really strong mod. I think it brings Elemental Wells into a place where I think they are really, really good for ability style builds where you want those abilities up, and being able to have builds where maybe you even use your abilities to create extra weapon damage or extra super energy or healing or things like that. Things we'll go into in other builds where I use Elemental Wells for other things besides just giving you that ability energy as I have in the last 2. But I think the bond here is a little up to player choice, besides putting Bountiful Wells on. I think Bountiful Wells is just a free 2 points here on the class item. If you need to run Particle Deconstruction, you can throw on Particle Deconstruction with Bountiful Wells on. if you want to run, if it's not a particle deconstruction season, say you're in season 16 or 17, you're in the future, you could throw on, if we have some kind of global debuff again, we will, obviously you might want to run that. If not, then maybe you want to run bombers, maybe you want to run a stat changing mod here, so maybe you can fit a scab back on your boots. All depends on what you need for the rest of the build to be fleshed out. As always, as I've said a couple other times in this video, make sure you're at the 100 Recup, 100 Discipline on Warlock. No other stat really matters right now on Warlock. Your grenades are just too strong not to have up as much as possible. And your supers come based off primary damage. And I'm sure as y'all have been seeing, I have my super up a lot. And I'm at like 4 intellect here. And this is a longer cooldown super anyways. That is all for the bond, and really all for the build. Just the last couple things to lock down. I would say make sure that you are using your melee when you can. The melee is stronger than most people want to get it credit for. I know in GM content, you don't want to take melee fights because you can lose them, but a trick that I use, and anybody could use, if an enemy is finishable, especially a red bar, a melee will kill them instead of using that finisher. And in a build like this, using that melee to, instead of finishing it, which will just kill that one ad, you can press your powered melee button here and proc that solar burn, which will probably kill them, and then it'll start burning the enemies around them, which might even kill them even at GM level. That's really all I have for the tips of how to play this class. That's really all for the video. Thanks guys for watching, as I know y'all have been doing a lot recently. Please don't forget to like, comment, and please do subscribe to the channel if you are watching my videos. I know a lot of you don't subscribe. Please do. It helps me grow this channel, helps me keep motivated. And I will be back on Monday with another build video for all of you. Alright everybody, thank you, and enjoy the last couple minutes here of gameplay. As always, I'll play a little bit of music to close us out. Alright everybody, thank you, and bye.